Welcome back to Moonstruck right here on Right Radio. I'm your host, Ryan, and today we're going to be talking about how conscious energy really affects us through essentially the energy that is in the field. So pretty much just how anything that transpires in the outside environment affects us on an internal level, such as the chemicals produced in the system. We're going to be looking actually at special individual today who actually has made great leaps in this field, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and he's going to show us or talk about in a short clip, about 3 minutes long, just how the energy in the field, in the environment, actually affects us on an internal level. So we're transferring from what we've talked about last week with brain waves, and with states of consciousness to now how those are affected by the environment and how they transpire into affecting us internally. So maybe we'll go to the clip now, and I'll see you guys in 3 minutes.
This will change civilization. My colleagues were not interested in this work because they didn't want to understand this. The pharmaceutical industry does not want us to teach how you can heal yourself. The universe is made out of energy. Energy is like waves in the water that is in fact actually energy moving through water. This is how energy waves interact. I drop two rocks from the same size rocks from the same height at the same time, and they hit the water. And the ripples are in phase and they come toward each other. The question is, what happens when the waves meet? When they're in phase, the wave is more powerful. It is called constructive interference. There is an opposite effect. This time I drop the two rocks from the same height, but I drop one before the other. And the ripples come toward each other, but they're out of phase. One wave is going up, one wave is going down. Two waves can interfere and cancel each other out. This is called destructive interference. You have all experienced this in your life. So let's say it's Saturday night and you have to go to a party and you're tired, and you meet some people who are in wave harmony. The waves are in harmony with you. And your energy and their energy in phase gives you more power. And then you are walking around on your feet, on your toes, very high, constructive interference. You are in a scary place, and you feel the energy go. What is going on is there's energy in the field that conflicts with you, and it cancels your energy. Destructive interference. All animals and all plants communicate with vibration. The gazelle doesn't have to go up to the lion and say, "Are you my friend?" Because at the distance, the energy could be felt and the gazelle will not go there because of bad vibes. When we were young, we're taught to be sensitive to the vibrations. We would not find ourselves in bad relationships and bad places. But we are usually told not to go by our feelings, but to listen to what people have to say. Language was designed to hide feelings. So the point is, all organisms communicate by vibrations and know if they're in a good place or a bad place by reading the vibrations. But we humans have that ability, but are not trained to use that ability. But I will show you in a little while how vibrations change the proteins of the body. And the proteins give us our structure.
Okay, so from that you can kind of see how the vibrations that are in the environment and the energy that is in the field really do affect us. And, as he talks about, everything communicates with vibration, in a sense. It's the cosmological force of communication, really. And essentially what happens is when you are in this state where you're producing sound or you're emitting some type of vibration, you essentially create this kind of resonance field around you, which is able to be detected by other organisms or beings in the environment. So kind of the purpose of understanding this is to understand that there is a force that is in the field that affects how we will move through that field, depending on what kind of vibrations are there. Like it talks about with the lion, essentially that's the basic kind of analogy that in the beginning of time we would normally be aware if there was like a predator or something in the environment that we needed to be aware of, right? Or some kind of animal that was critical when hunting or something along that lines, right? Anyway, that's kind of overall point of that. But how do we apply that to ourselves? So obviously we don't have to worry about things like hunting with spears out in the wilderness in order to catch food, right? You can just go to the grocery store or whatever in modern times. So how does this affect us? So think of somebody that you like to spend time with, your friend, say, even somebody on your sports team or whatever. Generally, when you're around them, you feel in a higher state of energy because your two energies are in harmony and they're resonating together, right? And as he says, that is called constructive interference. So when you are around somebody that is somewhat draining to your energy, think of maybe a relative that is particularly negative, or maybe somebody at the workplace who makes you feel uneasy being around them, or at school, right? So that is the opposite effect. It's destructive interference, because instead of working in harmony or resonating in harmony, what's going on is the energies are clashing because they're trying to battle for which vibration is more, I guess the word would be more pronounced in the field, right? So that is the essential concept behind vibration, how it affects things in the field. And maybe we'll pull up the Maslow's pyramid now, and we'll kind of just look into this. So you can kind of see from this pyramid that there are different levels to these psychological states, right, of development. And these vibrations affect this because, and keep in mind that this is always constantly changing. So if you want to think of it like this, you can think of like the pyramid as almost something that constantly transforms and shifts. Like obviously it's in a triangular type of shape here, but you can almost think of it as a pyramid that almost materializes and dematerializes, or transforms, or is reflected, or what's the other word? Like they have all those states of like translation and math and stuff like that when you're moving like a shape around or whatever. Reflection, like mirror, or I guess like, yeah, flipping or whatever. Then rotation, and what's the other one? Anyway, it's not important. The concept is essentially that the pyramid is able to transform into all these different points based on its surrounding, right? It could be inverted, it can be tilted, it could be moved around, but essentially the structure in a sense remains the same based on like the origin. So I guess what I'm trying to explain is that essentially based on where you are and where you're moving, the pyramid will appear almost differently. So essentially, we'll go back to that other example. Let's talk about like, maybe the relative that's particularly negative or something like that. So, typically you might be in a state that is at self-esteem or love and belonging. That's typically your basic state of being. So when you're around this person, it's almost like the energy of the pyramid then becomes decreased. But you have to realize that energy, here, I'll draw it in the diagram. So Yeah, you know what? We'll draw it. So, almost, again, guys, I'm no artist, but like, the pyramid is almost, it's turned sideways in a sense, because this is the point you're starting from, right? And the way it's displayed on the screen is essentially, here's the top of the pyramid where self-actualization is. But when you're moving outward from that origin point, which is the top of the pyramid, so depending on where the energy is moving in the field, if you're almost like approaching this source of negativity, then the pyramid's energy will descend from that source. And the point is that the closer you are to these people or the source of this energy, that being negativity or positivity or whatever you want to say, destructive interference or constructive interference, the energy of that pyramid will move in accordance to that source, which is the top of the pyramid. So, but, you can also think of it that if you're not generally at a state of self-actualization, then the top of the pyramid for you might be closer to self-esteem, right? So, again, this is just a rough drawing of how you might think of the energy and movement here. So when we talk about psychological needs, that being the very basis of the pyramid, when you're around those people who cause that destructive interference, the energy slides back down the pyramid. And the reason why that is because typically the body is like, okay, well, we're not in a state to facilitate growth. So what it does is the energy descends to prevent you from using up more energy than you need to in the field, right? Because we can almost go back to some of the concepts that we were talking about in previous episodes with the elements, right? Like rock or stone or earth, that is the least changeable element out of all the elements present, right? But what is the purpose behind that? It restricts the flow of energy so it's not lost. So it's the same thing with psychological needs here. You're not using energy that you don't need to. So, if you think of self-actualization, maybe that, encompasses something like practices of, let's say, thinking about or contemplating something that is an idea that is particularly beneficial for you. Maybe it's creating your business, or even a practice like meditation, and you're meditating on something that you want to do, or something that you want to practice, or something that you want to achieve. But if you're in a state where you need to be aware of your surroundings, like if there's an animal nearby, like a predator, then you're not really in a state that's going to facilitate that type of energy, because it needs to be directed, or it needs to be mitigated, being the specific word that I would use. It needs to be mitigated so that that energy can go towards other things. But the mitigation of that energy ties back to that psychological need. That's why it wants to remain stationary. It doesn't want to facilitate growth in that state, right? It's because it knows that it needs to conserve that energy because it might need it. So that's why it's called psychological needs, because it might need that energy, right? So you can almost think about that as the almost point of how that energy works, how it stays stationary, how it acts when it's in movement. So we'll kind of go through the pyramid here, just like from descending to ascending, and psychological needs kind of pretty self-explanatory based on the image for any of you guys just tuning in to the audio and you're not able to see the visuals. I'll just kind of explain what it's saying here. But breathing, so very basic need. Without a medium to breathe, we wouldn't be able to facilitate respiration, and we wouldn't be alive. So very important one. Food also, after a while, you're going to get hungry. The body needs energy to function and replenish itself. Also pretty self-explanatory. Water, fundamental medium for life. We're 75% water, so you need that to facilitate proper functionality in the body. What does it say here next? Oh, shelter. Shelter. So basically an environment that is somewhat regulated in a sense from the outside elements or aspects that you might need to shield yourself from on some physical level, right? So that facilitating stuff like warmth, which is why a lot of animals, they'll like live in caves, right? Because it's shielded from the elements, shielded from the cold to a degree, right? And then clothing, kind of basic, along with shelter. You want to keep warm, regulate that internal temperature. Sleep, another important one. So that is the aspect that is going to relate back to how you regulate your energy and the regeneration of that energy, the process of regenerating that energy, right? So sleep is very important for that, and all animals and all beings on this planet need sleep. So that's pretty much sums up the bottom of the pyramid there. I'm going to take a sip of tea because that was a lot of talking. Let me see if I can like condense this down a little bit going up the pyramid here, because we are moving to the top, so it should be somewhat condensed as we move upwards. So safety and security. It says health, employment, prosperity, family, and social stability. So this is a bit more on that level of, okay, we're past the basic needs part of just making sure we survive, which is the basis of the pyramid. Making sure survival is the main attribute. I'll just move the mic over here. But making sure survival is the main attribute. And essentially, when you do that, that leads to the basic needs being met, but it doesn't necessarily lead to the full regenerative aspect of the body being in play, such as feeling like you're in an environment that is, well, kind of self-explanatory here. It says safe and secure, but I would use the word stable and calm, I would say, for another word to describe it. And when you're in a state of stability and calmness, then that regeneration process that is built upon those psychological needs can actually occur, and you can facilitate the body's healing process that occurs in sleep, for example, more. So what really happens as you move up the pyramid is all these aspects become amplified. All the aspects at the bottom of the pyramid are amplified by the level that is higher, right? So psychological needs, sleep quality will go up because you feel like you're in a safe environment. You don't need to constantly monitor everything that's going on in the environment, right? So it can take care of itself almost to a degree. And I always say this in pretty much every episode that, act with awareness, utilize awareness. So never feel like anything is absolute, because a lot of what we experience is based entirely on our own reflection of self. So if the cosmos in any way is meant to disbelieve that which you have essentially brought about, then it will take it back. So just keep that in mind for any of these principles, especially moving up the pyramid as we go here. So again, health, employment, prosperity, family, social stability. So all of those are like higher needs being met that, health, amplifies stuff like sleep, whatever. Employment, you're amplifying the ability to obtain things like food, water, shelter, clothing, whatever. prosperity in family, social stability. So these kind of relate back to that sense of emotional stability and emotional flourishing, right? Where you're in the sense of, okay, I feel like I have a good network of people around me in the field, because as we just talked about, constructive and destructive interference, if you've got that relative that is negative all the time and you're spending all your time around that person, then they're going to sap your energy, or at least, I wouldn't say maybe sap it, but it will be negated to a point where it can flourish beyond a certain point, right? So the concept there essentially is that if you have that network around you that is good, you got those friends, or you have those colleagues that are helping you in your projects or whatever, or you have those team members that are helping you on your sports team or whatever, and you spend time around those people, then that energy will be amplified of you performing in that. So that's essentially the concept, right? That if you have that around you, that is what's going to be amplified, because it's in a state where it can now flourish like a plant, right? If you provide a plant soil that it's not able to grow in, it's going to be extremely hard for it to, or I should say challenging for it to evolve beyond a certain point. But if you provide soil that is watered, is nurtured, is taken care of, and the gardener, maybe sings to his plants or whatever, it's actually, there's studies been done that singing to plants actually helps plants. So that's just a fun fact. But it's the energy that's in the field again, right? It's like he talked about, it's that constructive interference. So if you have that energy around you that is constructive, it's going to build upon that and build upon that and build upon that. So just like people talk about in life, like downward spiral, oh yeah, he started drinking, and then, his family broke up, and then, he lost his job, whatever. An upward spiral is also possible, where you have, okay, he started working harder, he got his business off the ground, he got his, he got married, he got his family life together, he started having kids, whatever. And then his business took off big time, and he it expanded into a corporation or whatever. So that's also an upward spiral, is also possible, but it's just based off the momentum of the energy that is in movement in the field. So once you understand that basic principle, like, all of this becomes like a lot easier to understand. It becomes a lot easier to understand why certain people affect you, and why certain people don't. And a lot of times, like, I want to say this, that you're not at the mercy of this energy that is in the field, because if you act with awareness and see that, okay, I understand this energy is present, that's the first step in just acknowledging how to utilize your energy in that circumstance, right? So you're not going to overutilize it, trying to, say, for example, like, argue with somebody who is just like, hard-headed and thinks they're always right, or tries to press their ideas upon others or whatever, or gets people to get riled up about subjects that really don't benefit them, because you're not going to battle it out with somebody that is essentially trying to oppose your energy. You're going to say, okay, well, is it beneficial for me to engage with this person? That's the first question you're going to ask yourself. Is it beneficial for me to engage with this person? And if the answer is no, then you're only going to engage in the, aspect, or in the amount that you need to, right? You're not going to go out of your way to interact with this person. You're not going to apply extra energy towards talking with that person or being around them, because you realize that, though you might have to work on this, on a project with this person, or have to be in the same environment with this person, or, have to figure out something with this person, you're not going to go above and beyond to try to connect with this person, because you understand that energy in the field and the consequences that could come from that, right? So anyway, point is that you're not going to exude extra energy to those things that do not benefit you, right? So pretty straightforward, but I just want to kind of make that point clear, that you're not at the mercy of these other people, and you get to choose how it's going to be, what it's going to be for you, right? You have the right to make that decision. So, and this leads into the next aspect of the pyramid here, love and belonging, right? So once you have safety and security, you got, your finances being taken care of, you got your health in the right order, you got, your family put together, you have prosperity. So love and belonging. So this is going to that place of like almost finding out where you belong in society, or where you fit in, or where your purpose is moving in that direction. I'm going to take another sip of tea here, because this is a lot of talking for me. I'm not used to this much talking in a day, much less an hour. So I'd just like to say, this show usually runs for about 40 minutes. After this show, I generally feel extremely tired from talking, because I don't normally talk this much in a day for like a straight period of time. So love and belonging. So here we see friendship, family, intimacy, sense of connection. So intimacy, I say, is one that should be particularly acknowledged at this point, because, I feel like in the 21st century, the concept of like love and relationships has kind of been like, I don't want to say polluted, but maybe diluted down. And almost in that sense where, we can say like, oh yeah, things are just like casual that are going on or whatever. Me personally, I might be considered a lovesick fool. I generally believe in the concept that if you're with somebody, it should be like that person that is like the one that you are meant to like escape the matrix with, and fight beside this person to like the end of time type stuff. So I don't know, that's my philosophy, but generally it comes from this kind of concept here, that love and belonging is somebody, especially in the concept of intimacy or close relationships, is somebody who you feel that will draw your potential out to the greatest degree. And is not a selfish concept to say that, oh yeah, this person is benefiting my life, because you have that same effect on the other person, right? But if you want to genuinely see things in a way that is not twisted or trying to get something, or see things out of the concept of what pure love is, it's that acknowledging things for how they are, and seeing that, okay, yes, I might be benefiting from this situation, but it doesn't mean that anybody else, the other person, benefits less. It just means that we're both in harmony together. It means that we're both growing together, right? So thinking that because you benefit from somebody else that you care about is like not right, is like, I would say that's incorrect to kind of have that mentality, because if you feel genuine love for somebody and that person feels genuine love for you, then you should have the understanding that both of you are benefiting together, and you both make each other's experience of life and this journey better, and you both improve each other's capabilities and aspects of the self and each other's character, and facilitate that growth process. So that essentially is what I feel that should be kind of acknowledged when we talk about intimacy, or when we talk about partnerships, and by partnerships I mean relationships, not business partnerships. So yeah, this is essentially the concept that I'm kind of alluding to here. So again, I think that's a very important concept just to kind of even contemplate in the 21st century. It says also family or friendships here. So another thing again is a lot of people confuse being family with being related. Family is something you build for yourself. Family is something that is a community of people who genuinely make you feel like you're becoming your best self, or you're becoming the most productive version of yourself. You're becoming that person you want to be, and they're not people who separate you from that. They're not people who separate you from your ideals, and they're not people who are a detriment to your ideals or your personal growth. They're people who facilitate that, who are there by your side, and who are not going to tell you that you can't do something ever, right? They're the people who are going to say, like, regardless of what the statistics are about, people accomplishing this or that, they're going to tell you that you can do it because they have faith and love in you, right? That is the meaning of this part of the pyramid, in fact, right? You're getting to that level of self-actualization, which means you have the love necessary around you to facilitate that growth, right? So, and I would say, like, if there's any young guys watching this, especially, like, I would say this is important for you also to remember that just because, like, you might not have, a good, like, female partner around you in your immediate surrounding, you might not have, all the friends and family and support of that you might need at your disposal. And some of the time that can come with feeling like you need to, almost be like a one-man army and just, like, do everything yourself. But just because you have that feeling and you might have to battle like that for a period of time, that doesn't mean you need those things any less. And it actually means that you should, try to facilitate that within yourself, because those things are still as important as they ever were, right? So realizing that it doesn't always come from something external as well, and you can create that self or that sense of love and belonging within yourself, and find that in other places in the world. You can find it in nature. It doesn't even have to be materialized in a human being. It can even be like non-physical beings, like it could be angels, right? That you feel are guiding your experience and assisting you to where you want to go. Those are just as real as gravity or light or any other force of creation in the universe or in the cosmos, in my opinion. So, and if you want to talk about something that's always going to be there for you, angels have been here since, like, the beginning of time. So, I think and they're benevolent beings, so they're always here to help, right? Anyway, I digress from angels. So, going back to that part of the pyramid, we're getting to that, as it says here, sense of connection, right? So, and that's what's facilitating higher states of the pyramid, right? So, again, intimacy, another important thing, right? And, whether you're, male or female, guy or girl, or whatever, realizing that polar energy, or that energy that helps you facilitate that growth, is still important. And even if you don't have it materialized in another person, you can still find that, and that it's still fundamental to your development is important. And that's also an aspect of humility, right? Which comes with moving up the pyramid, realizing that, your limitations, though you might have to be humble enough to admit it, you do have some limitations, but that doesn't make you, like, weak or anything like that. It makes you vulnerable, but that's different from being weak. It takes strength to admit vulnerability. So having the vulnerability to admit that you might still need that energy to facilitate your growth, even if it's, maybe not in the form that you wanted in immediately at this point in time, it doesn't mean that, you're beyond it, or, it's, insignificant, or it's not meaningful to your process of self-development, because I would say it's quite the contrary, that you do need it to move up through the pyramid. And having that humility is important. And even, a lot of times I was having this conversation the other day that a lot of times the way that people look on the world, you might say like this person is against me, or like this person, why do I always feel like, this person is against me or giving me a hard time? But a lot of times you'll find that these people are really on your side. They're not against you like you think they are. You're just in your own head a bit too much, right? A lot of times it's just that these people do want to help you develop, but they're on their own path, and again, like even if they do something that impedes your growth a bit, everybody, one, makes mistakes, but two, generally, like also there's that other viewpoint where from your perspective there are no mistakes because they're all meant to be a part of your development. So my point essentially though is that if you start looking at things from these people are really on my side and they're really here to help me facilitate my growth just as much as I want to facilitate my growth, then that's a much more productive way to look at things, because you will realize that, the world isn't against you, the world is not against you. In fact, if you reach out to it, you might find a lot more help than you thought was available to you. So, and just with that, maybe we'll move up the pyramid again to self-esteem here. So confidence, achievement, respect of others. So respect of others, we kind of just talked about there a little bit. So realizing that people are not always against you is something that kind of correlates with respect of others. And I would say that's kind of fundamental, because if you look at the world in a way like this person is against me, you tell yourself that narrative about that person, even if it's not true. And then you create that narrative because you'll feel that oppositional force in the field. Oppositional force in the field sounds like the reverse of force field, but but essentially it's kind of the same concept here. You feel that oppositional force in the field against you, but sometimes that can really just come from you because you perceive that it's going to be that way, right? It's almost like I was also making this analogy the other day. When you're in the gym, for example, I'll talk about this from my own experience. When I'm on the pull-up bar and I'm thinking about how many reps I want to get, I'm losing energy to do those reps because I'm too much in my head about, okay, am I going to get to this number or whatever? But if I get out of my head, I'll realize that I might even be able to exceed that number, right? So I found that the other day when I was doing dips, I was able to achieve the number that I set for myself because I just decided to get out of my head about it, So a lot of times it's about getting out of your own way too, and that facilitates the respect of others, because once you get out of your own way, you facilitate that love and expansion to, facilitate that bond with other people, or bond with, other aspects of life, wisdom, courage, love, friendship, right? So I was talking about in a video the other day, I was talking about the 4 souls of Shinto philosophy, Aramitama, Kushimatama, Nagimatama, Sakimatama, which are all those 4 aspects I've just listed in the same order. And essentially that relates to this pyramid growth too. So I'm not going to get into that, but essentially that is what facilitates that, right? You have to facilitate that through all those different aspects. Anyway, moving back to the pyramid, confidence and achievement. I would say this is important in any degree. If you want to move up the pyramid, and if this is your goal, and to go on this mission of self-development, or to try and change or develop your life in any way, it comes from this aspect of trying to build that self-esteem, which is this point on the pyramid. So confidence, I would say, is something that really comes from all of those previously listed, but generally it does come from a more action-driven force, right? if you do things, you feel more confident because you feel you have achieved something. So confidence kind of links to achievement in that way. But achievement also links to confidence, because when you achieve something, it builds your confidence, right? So even if it's like little goals you set for yourself, like say like, okay, I want to, start living more healthy, so I'm going to go to the gym. And you achieve that goal of going every day, or going 2 days a week or 3 days a week or whatever it is, or even it doesn't have to be quantified by, okay, I'm just going this number of times a week, but maybe it's quantified by, how hard am I going to train while I'm there, right? Or how much am I going to push myself to break through some mental barrier, some limiting factor, right? So that is also an achievement which you set for yourself, right? And that could go for anything. That could go for, I want to start eating more healthy, so I'm going to make a firm decision that I'm going to eat like clean stuff. That is also a show of willpower and a show of achievement, right? So, and I feel like willpower comes more from almost those lower states in the pyramid, like maybe safety and security and love and belonging, but it translates to the upper part of the pyramid to facilitate things like achievement, right? So though the lower forces might not be, how should I say, the key point at this part of the pyramid, again, it facilitates that higher development in the pyramid, because you need that those lower forces to facilitate those higher parts, right? So anyway, it's almost like building a house. You want to build a house on a like good foundation, right? So that's pretty much the principle, right? And I'm not saying you can't build a house from, the top down, but, it might be a lot more challenging than if you build it the other way, right? So again, to each their own. You build your house how you decide is best, but I'm just here to talk about a pyramid, right? So anyway, confidence, that is essentially linked to you achieving those or I should say you completing those achievements, right? So when you complete those achievements, you feel more confidence, and that confidence can translate into how you interact with others. Like, I'll even talk about, again, from my experience, I'll say, like, on days where I'm feeling like, my self-esteem or my energy in terms of how I'm moving through the field is not at its peak. Like, I'll feel like, oh yeah, I don't want to talk to anybody, I just want to do my thing and, like, go home, or, like, do my thing, or, get the gym in or whatever, and then go home, or do whatever I have to do, and then, pretty much, like, just, like, do something that is, like, less energetic, or that is not as focused around all these, like, interactive parts of life, right? Is because typically when human beings feel like they're in this state where you feel like you don't have that confidence that day, or you don't have that self-esteem, or you don't have that level of action, then it translates into life by you kind of lowering your energy output and going within yourself, because you don't want to, like, overly interact with other people, because you feel, I wouldn't say distressed, but you feel imbalanced within yourself, right? And I feel like that, like, and I'm not saying that is bad in any way, but just understand that factor does occur. And I feel like one of the reasons why people do that, one of the reasons why I will generally interact less with people on days where I feel like that, is because I feel like it's almost also a respect thing. Because if I'm not feeling like I'm in a state to facilitate my best state of action, I don't want to bring that energy unnecessarily onto others. So that also translates back into self-esteem, that that you want to be respectful of others by being conscious of your own state, right? And that state of consciousness can only be really facilitated by you being at these higher parts of the pyramid, where you're aware of your actions and how your actions affect others, but also realize that you don't want to get sucked into that state of thinking where you always say, like, oh yeah, whatever, I don't feel like, my best self today, so I don't want to I don't want to interact with anybody, and make that a habit, because then you could get sucked into that state of thinking too. You can get sucked into that state of, okay, well, I'm just not going to talk with people, or I'm just going to do my own thing or whatever, because that can become a habit too, and that cuts you off from that aspect of life, and that actually will make you regress down the pyramid instead of ascend up the pyramid, right? So, and when you regress down the pyramid from this point of self-esteem, then you lose that aspect of like respect for others, because then you're projecting that state of, oh yeah, I almost like it's almost like this lack of self-esteem that you're now projecting onto others by saying like, oh, these people might feel like, they don't want to talk to me, what if they don't like me, blah 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 blah. And that's you projecting your emotions outward, right? So self-esteem is really not only something that is built internally, but it's also built externally. And when you find the balance of that, where you can almost like harmonize those states of being, like your ego and shadow, and work in a state where those two are in balance together and in union and in a state of harmonic being, and or just in a perfect state of transformation, then you can facilitate that self-esteem to lead to that respect of others, in the sense where you feel comfortable to interact. So again, not saying that if you want to spend time by yourself, or you want to like facilitate lower energy output in interactions with other people one day, that's perfectly fine. I would say that's perfectly fine, but don't make that a habit of just saying like, oh yeah, I don't feel like it today, I don't feel like it today, I don't feel like it today, because then that really leads to that state of that becoming a habitual thing, and then you don't want to, because it's just a habit at that point, right? So last, we're going to sum up here. Last point here is self-actualization. And again, as we've gone up the pyramid, we probably spend a bit less time on each of these parts. So self-actualization, morality, creativity, spontaneity, acceptance. So this really is that aspect of the heart coming out, that morality and honor. I say honor is something that is very intrinsic to guys since the beginning of time. Like if you're a guy, you only have your word and not much else to bank on a lot of the times, and that's where a lot of your morality and views of life come from, and you don't want to break those really for particularly any reason, but especially not for just mundane things, right? So because generally that's like the code you live by, so that really dictates who you're going to be in the world. And creativity, spontaneity, that really comes from you being in the present moment. We talk about in states of consciousness that as you go up, you come closer to mindfulness and being in the present moment and acting from the present moment, because your mind is mindfulness, because the mind is not chattering away. You're in a state of just pure stillness and spontaneity within yourself, because you're acting from the present, right? So, and acceptance, just kind of accepting things as they are, and accepting that like I was watching Beyblade Metal Fusion, or a couple of clips of that last night, and I was watching this part where Jinga is up against Rudero, and basically he's like, I will make my own future. That is the Blader spirit, right? So I would say personally for me that is the sorcerer spirit, but concept remains the same, that you will make your own future, and nobody can decide that but you. So once you reach that state on the pyramid, that's your peak of energy, right? So that is pretty much all for the show today. It's a good thing I decided just to cover the pyramid, because there was a lot more on my script, but I really just wanted to cover this topic. So again, I hope you guys have enjoyed, and if you feel that you've learned anything from today, I've done my job as host of this show. And remember to subscribe on the YouTube channel, because it definitely helps support the channel. Follow us on DC Media Hub. Remember, you can always tune into this show on Riot Radio at 1 p.m. on Fridays. So also, I encourage you to follow me on Instagram at top_sorcerer. And if I haven't let you know already, then I do have another channel that is called The Sword of Mercury, and I recommend that you look into that if you appreciate shorter form, relaxing content. And I will see you guys next week right here on Riot Radio.